In this video, I'm going to show you how to generate a Raritan firmware level report using command automation of the Windows 10 command prompt. Okay, first thing we need is a command prompt to automate to do the work for us. There we go. I'm now going to open up a second command prompt, and this is where I'll run the program that will do the work. Now, to start with, I've got a file called hostlist.txt, and this contains a list of IP addresses for 20 Raritan PDUs, of which I want to get the firmware level of. I now run a program to do this. It's called Raritan firmware report. And I have to tell it the host list file name, which is hostlist.txt, the user to log into the PDUs as user admin, an environment variable to extract the password from. All the 20 Raritan PDUs have got the same password, and then where to put the CSV file, firmware report.csv. Now it's telling me that the environment variable upass hasn't been defined yet with the password, so I'll just do that very quickly using this little utility. And let's try that again. So what's happening? I'm not doing any typing now. This is all happening automatically. In the first command window in the top left-hand corner of the screen, it's logging into each of the intelligent PDUs using a secure shell session, and once it's logged in, it's issuing the show PDU command. That's given me the model number of the PDU and its firmware version. It's then logging out with the exit command and moving on to the next PDU. So straight away we're on to, it's just done the one with IP address 192.168.1.45. Now we've got 20 of these to do, which gives me an opportunity to say, why is a firmware level report useful? Well, it's handy to know what level of firmware your devices are running, because if any of them are running an old version, then ideally you'd want to actually upgrade it to have it running a recent version, or even the most recent version. Why would you want to upgrade your firmware? Well, you might want to upgrade it because your vendor has identified that your current firmware has got a security vulnerability in it, so you certainly don't want to be running that level of firmware. You might also have a company-wide or corporate-wide security policy which dictates that devices have to be running at least the current firmware or the last but one release of firmware. And having a firmware report will allow you to ascertain that and make sure that you're within compliance of your corporate security policy. So everything seems to be going well so far. I think I saw one that had a problem there, but we'll come back to that one. We're on to 192.168.1.57. There's only a few left now. But you can see how, if I was doing this manually, doing all that typing and entering the password, and you saw the password was about 14 characters long, that's quite a bit of typing, and I'm sure that I would make a mistake at some point. Okay, we're finished now. So if we have a look for firmware report.csv, we can see that it's got today's date on it, 3rd of January 2019. Happy New Year, by the way, everyone. If we then have a look at that CSV file, I think that's the command. I think it's file view. Hold on, I'll get there in the end. You can tell I do these demos live. So what we have here is we've got a nice CSV file, and we've got the IP address. You could also use a host name as well in there. Just a quick summary: was the operation to get the firmware information okay or not? It's, as well as getting me the firmware level, which is in column 5, it's also got me the name of the PDU and the model number of the PDU as well. So straight away here I can see this is probably a config error somewhere. I've got two which have got the same name, so that's probably something which I would want to look at. And also there was one here that I couldn't actually log into, the IP address 192.168.1.50. And if I scroll back in the window here, you might have seen it. Here we go. When I tried to log in there, it said there was a remote identification host change, something's happened here. I'd really need to go and investigate that. But so as a side effect of actually getting the firmware levels, we can also find out if we can actually get into some of these devices. So it's better to discover now that I have a problem with one PDU just logging into it, rather than wait for a user to ring me up and say, I can't log in. Also, because you've got it in CSV format, you can do things like sort by various columns, which will group the different types of firmware. So we've got 2 here running this level, then we've got another lot running this level, a third range here. So just on this 20, we've got 4 different versions of the firmware. So definitely there's some work to be done there. Now, the host list file, which I showed you earlier, I've currently got 20 entries in there. There's absolutely no reason why you can't put 100, 200, 300, as many as you want. Just bear in mind that while it's doing this process, you can't use the desktop for any other activity. Now, in a future video, I'll show you a way that we can do this exactly the same way, but using an automation technique on a Linux machine, which allows you to do this, 1, even faster, and 2, in a way that doesn't tie up important resources like your desktop. If you'd like to get in contact with any questions, if you think I could help you with providing audit of your firmware levels on your Raritan PDUs, please get in touch. Thank you for watching.